Hey guys, it's Dr. Sam Robbins. Today I've got a controversial topic, and it's, do women lower your testosterone levels? And I've got a lot of interesting details about this. But I bring this up because I got a long email from a subscriber, and he was having some problems. So I'll read the email, and then we'll take it from there. It basically goes, "Hey doc, I think being in a relationship is killing my testosterone. I'm not motivated like I used to be, and my sex drive is in the toilet." Now, about 2 years ago, I did a blood test, and my testosterone level was 812. Just on a side note, testosterone levels, at least in America, is like 300 to 1,000. So 812 is pretty good. It's a higher level. He didn't say how old he was. Uh, that's okay. So it continues. I think that's pretty good. That's right before I met my girlfriend. Unfortunately, a year later, I retested my blood test and it was only 371. It was cut in half. This is crazy, right? And yeah, that's a big drop. That's more than a half. Um, Nothing had changed in my life other than having a girlfriend. I was eating the same and going to the gym regularly, but maybe not as much as before. I ran into your videos. I made some changes in my life. I started taking AlphaViril to improve my testosterone levels. And 6 months later, which is a week ago, I did another blood test and my testosterone was 724. I was happy that it had doubled in a few months, but it's not as high as my original 812. Now, I do feel better. My sex drive still isn't as good as where it was before my girlfriend. Is there any evidence that being in a relationship drops a man's testosterone? That's the topic. Should I break up with her? By the way, yeah, he doubled the testosterone, so really good. So again, this is a really interesting topic, and it's very good that he's perceptive, that he noticed these changes, and good for him for, again, taking these regular blood tests, which I tell everyone to, so you know where your baseline is. Sometimes you think there's other problems in your life, and it's just hormonal. And good for him making these changes to make the improvements and being proactive. Now, as far as breaking up with your girlfriend, that's not my place to say, but I'll tell you more about this in a minute. And to answer your question, yes, women or being in a relationship can lower your testosterone levels and decrease your sex drive. All right, that sounds a little controversial, but I'll give you more details about this in a minute. Now, I personally have seen a drop in my sex drive being in a relationship, but that could be for a variety of reasons. However, again, this is a bit of a complicated topic. It's not as simple. Yes, women are the problem, because that's not it. I'll give you some more research stats at the end of this video. Now, the thing to notice is, first of all, if you're starting a new relationship, right, and you're first dating, and you're pursuing her and everything, that's your dopamine is high, your testosterone is high, and because it's something new and fun, you're like a man, you're hunting, and therefore you're hungry for sex. All right, everything's new and novel. And by the way, this is also similar for women when they're being pursued. Their testosterone, dopamine levels are also higher. However, over time, for a man at least, when your emotional needs are being met, hugging and cuddling and all that stuff, you're no longer hunting for sex. All right. You're also, things start to get a little bit boring sexually. You get monotonous. So that initial dopamine will drop. And this happens with everyone, and it's normal. All right. And unfortunately, though, over time, I notice that testosterone levels also tend to drop. Again, as dopamine drops, so does testosterone and vice versa. Now, as far as it as in this situation, him dropping 50% in a year, that's crazy. All right. There's maybe something else is going on. There's also another thing that I didn't ask him, and it's, he didn't mention what kind of a relationship he's in or what kind of a person she's in. All right. And I mention this because many of us, all of us at some point have been in a toxic relationship. All right. And if you are a guy in a toxic relationship, she's directly or indirectly basically castrating you. All right. If you're constantly being criticized, minimized, you're being belittled, she's trying to manipulate you, make you feel guilty, she's nagging you, she's complaining, and she's comparing you to other guys. Well, all these things are slowly killing your self-esteem. All right. They're emasculating you. All right. They're, like I said, it's like castrating you. So this will certainly drop your testosterone and your dopamine levels. And then all of a sudden, you tend to have higher estrogen because of it at the ratio. And yes, all of this is stressful, and stress goes up, cortisol levels go up, and that becomes a big problem. So let's move on to stress being the testosterone killer. As I've said many times in my previous videos, that any form of stress, long-term stress, will eventually increase your cortisol levels and adrenaline and all this stuff, and that will lower your testosterone. Remember, the opposite hormone of testosterone is not estrogen, which most people think. It's cortisol. All right. Cortisol goes up, testosterone will come down. And that's natural fight or flight. When you're out trying to escape or you're under stress, your body's like, this is not the time to procreate and have sex. So it naturally will lower your testosterone levels if you're under constant stress and higher cortisol. And what causes this? Remember, any kind of stress. This can be from lack of sleep. This is a huge one. Most people aren't sleeping well. You have money problems, financial problems, especially guys. We're always thinking about what if this and that. And there's a lot of stress and burden on us. Too much exercise will do this. I used to exercise all the time, every day, an hour or two. That's just not normal. That's not certainly not for me. And I noticed over time, my testosterone levels did drop and I just lost motivation. And that included sex drive. Having obviously health problems is always going to be stressful. And yes, relationship problems. And this includes toxic people, whether it's your girlfriend or work or friends or anything else, is going to be a massive stressor. Now, I'm not here to give you, again, relationship advice. I don't know anything about you or your relationship or her because that's beyond the scope of today's topic. Now, before I talk about another big problem, let me give you some scientific stats. I did a quick search about this, and men in committed romantic relationships have on about a 21 to 20% lower testosterone levels than men who are not. Another study showed that the longer a man is in a relationship, the lower his testosterone levels. And by the way, this doesn't necessarily mean in bad. It's good for the testosterone levels. They showed that maybe lower testosterone levels in couples also means there's more satisfying relationship. Maybe they're more focused on each other rather than trying to have sex. Something to keep in mind. But I know for us guys, testosterone levels drop. You're unable to perform sexually. You're not getting erections. And for us guys, you just don't feel manly anymore, right? You feel like something is wrong. It kills your self-esteem. And by the way, that lower testosterone level doesn't just negatively affect your relationship. It negatively affects everything. You're just not driven to anything in life. You become apathetic. And as they say, a body in motion stays in motion. So if you're becoming lazy and not driven and lower self-esteem, that just perpetuates more and bigger problems towards that negativity. So as I just mentioned, another problem is and bigger underlying problem is as your testosterone levels drop, right? You become more apathetic naturally, right? When your testosterone is high, like in your 20s, you're driven, right? You want to plant your flag everywhere. You're ready to go. You're so optimistic. I can do this. I can do that. But as your testosterone levels drop and life kicks you between the legs, or women kick you between the legs, your confidence drops. And as Arnold would say, you become a girly man.
Stop being a girly man and work out.
And this is something I've seen with quote unquote nice guys. And I've been a nice guy my whole life, so I get it. And guess what? If you're in a toxic relationship with a bitchy, toxic girl, she will take advantage of you and push you around and use you as a doormat because you're being passive and not manly. And she'll take advantage of that. Even if she doesn't do it intentionally, it will happen indirectly because that's just, again, unfortunately, human nature to take advantage of someone if you let them. And what happens is she won't respect you because of that. And this becomes a big turnoff. And I'll pause this for a minute. And I was dating a girl many, many years ago, and she really liked her mom. She really respected her mom and didn't respect her dad. And I would say, why? She's like, well, my mom's like, she's driven. She does all the work and she's blah, 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 right? She's a real hard ass. And I said, well, what about your dad? And she said, my dad is basically a potato. He doesn't do anything. My mom just, doesn't respect him. I said, oh, okay. Over time, though, I found out when I asked her, I said, has your dad always been like that? And she says, no, he wasn't. And as she got older, because I was stayed friends with her for a long time, she basically said how over the years, her mom basically just punched her dad down so much that he eventually went down and just collapsed because it wasn't worth it for him to fight. And the more he bowed down, the more she punched him. And I've seen this in a lot of relationships. And guess what? I was in one of those relationships many years ago because I didn't want to fight or I didn't want to argue or because I loved her or cared about her. And if you let that be a nice guy all the time, they take advantage of that. Anyone will take advantage of it. So keep that in mind. What I'm saying is that the lower your testosterone levels become, the more bleh you become, the more girly you become. And that is not good. So if you're in an unhealthy and toxic relationship, either you need to get out, all right, or get some counseling and see if it can be fixed. But between you and me, chances are that people don't change and things will only get worse. I've seen it again and again and again with me personally, with other people. It just gets worse. Some people just, they go for someone bad and they latch onto them. So keep that in mind. You're going to end up resenting yourself and your partner. Life's too short to be in a crappy relationship, all right? Whether it's at home or work or with anything else. And stress is just horrible for your life, for your health, for your hormones. And the worst relationship is a stressful one with your significant other because it's just there, right? It hits you physically, hurts you emotionally, and of course now sexually. However, if you're in a positive relationship, then great. I suggest you let her know and you let her know how much you appreciate her and better than other people who, that beat other people down and treat her with respect. Either way, you need to focus on increasing your testosterone levels and decreasing your stress and stress hormones. Look, at the end of the day, you'll look better, you'll have more confidence, your mood will improve, and she'll respect you more and the relationship will improve. All right. I played with my hormones over the years. When my testosterone levels were low, I was bleh. When my testosterone levels were high, I was driven. I was the same guy, but I acted differently and I saw life differently. So now it's up to you to take action. I put links below on how to increase your testosterone levels. And if you're in a toxic relationship, do something. Either fix it if it's fixable or move on because you're too important to sacrifice your health and your present happiness for something that's only going to get worse. I hope this was helpful and leave your questions below and thanks.